is for the way you look at me.
While experiences growing up can shape future relationships, men who have grown up to be mama's boys or wives who are daddy's girls have a unique set of issues and baggage.
Baggage is a good word. Joseph and Sarah Elizabeth Malinek, authors of Getting Back to Love, know these issues firsthand, and they've joined us today to give us some tips for both mama's boys and daddy's girls.
Yeah. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
And we know these issues firsthand because we are a mama's boy and a daddy's girl.
Well, I was going to ask you, how did you write so well on this topic? What was your motivation?
It was intimate,
love.
close
Therapy.
to our hearts.
Yeah. So when did the two of you realize that you were a mama's boy and you were maybe a daddy's girl, and define that and just realize that it was affecting your relationship?
In a real sense, we knew the dynamics before we knew the name for it. We were seeing and experiencing the dynamics in ourselves. And we had experienced these dynamics in the past and knew that something wasn't working quite right. We were seeing it in our clients. And then as we increased our own education, studying the work of Bert Hellinger and systemic family constellations, suddenly we had the names. It made such perfect sense. It was like we had seen the forest but couldn't name the trees. And now we could. And our definition of mama's boy is sort of different from the norm.
Right.
Mama's boys try to get their power by either pushing against or pulling on the women in their lives. They're looking for their masculine essence outside themselves.
It's an unconscious thing.
Okay.
They really haven't established their masculinity. So they're trying to get it by pushing and pulling against women. So.
And for daddy's girls, they're trying to find their fulfillment outside themselves by taking care of the men in their lives. And so once we latched onto those terms, we knew, and the kind of broadened definition, we knew we were onto something.
And you talked about didn't really establishing the male role and the female role, and I thought it was interesting the way that you talked about that happening critically ages 10 to 14ish when the dad kind of comes on the scene and tells the boy he is a man and begins to interact with him uniquely. Is critical in the role?
It's absolutely. When the young man begins to move out of the sphere of influence of the mother into the sphere of influence of the father and begins to internalize masculinity, and that comes with the interaction with the father. And in that case, then the young man can walk out and be potent and not need external to push against external things to prove his masculinity.
Okay.
And for young women as well, developing as girls and finding their identity as young women, when does that happen for them?
That also happens between the ages of 10 and 14. Ideally, the mother is in a place to extend the invitation for the daughter to enter her sphere of influence, which can be challenging because in their toddler years, little girls discover the sphere of influence of their fathers, where life is very exciting and maybe even a little bit dangerous. Men tend to take more risk, and to have soaked up dad's love and attention and then to be asked to come back into mother's sphere of influence, there can be some resistance.
And even you have to realize that the father has to release the daughter.
Right.
So a mama's boy tends to depend on his daughter just like he does the other women in his life. So to some extent, by her seeing him as the king, that enhances him. And so a man has to be willing to release the daughter back to the mother.
So give us a definition of sort of what the profile of a mama's boy looks like and the profile of a daddy's girl. What are some of the characteristics?
In order to do that, and again, the broad overall definition is a man who pushes or pulls against women to get his own sense of power. And it may look any number of ways. We've kind of divided up into 4 categories. One is the bully. This is the man who kind of abuses women and feels powerful in that sense. It may be the only place in life that he feels powerful. Another might be the nurturer, the man who's taking care of women. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, except if he needs that to feel good about himself. Another might be the typical apron strings boy. And this is what we typically think about as a mama's boy, a man who is tied to his mother.
And his mother has probably done everything for him, doted over him, and he's used to being served and having a woman do everything for him, and comes into marriage with that expectation.
Oh,
and then meets reality.
Oh, my goodness.